Hello and welcome to the Geek Embassy Hangout. I'm your host, Regina McMenemy, and I'm here with Isabella, Evan, and Dante. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
We sort of combined our May and June Hangouts, mostly because of scheduling, because we have this other thing that we're doing on the site right now that demands all of us to be in the same place at the same time. You may have seen posts about it or links about it or videos on Facebook, but we're playing Pathfinder, a story that Evan has crafted for us. So we kind of had a little scheduling snafu and had to kind of condense the Hangouts for May and June to make sure we could continue to get enough game time in to make our story work. So if you're watching this and you haven't checked out the Geek Embassy Plays Pathfinder, watch this video first. And then go check that out. I'll make sure to put some links in the description.
Fantastic. I love shameless plugs. They're great.
Why not?
Why not?
It's our show. We can plug what we want.
I know, exactly. Like, I'm plugging our show, so...
Yeah, I know.
I can plug other things shamelessly as well, and I will refrain. So, since we are combining May and June, I had the idea in May to do, because it was right before Mother's Day was going to be our hangout, and then the June hangout was going to be right before Father's Day. So we decided to combine favorite, like mom and dad, to favorite parental figures. So for our hangout today, we are talking about some favorite sort of mentor, mom, dad, aunt, uncle characters throughout, whatever literature, TV, movies, other various and sundry places we might discuss. So we've had, we haven't really coordinated too much our list. I think everybody has some lists, but I didn't give out any real specifics. I just said, if you wanted to find a movie one or a TV one or something like that, to go ahead. But Dante came up with a giant list. He was the exhaustive researcher.
I mean, I'm a librarian. What can I say? I'm peeling through all of my DVDs, looking through my bookshelves, and you're like, oh, look at that. There's Parents. I'll put them on a list. It'll be great. I literally got one like when I was brushing my teeth this morning. I was like, oh, cool, these people.
Right.
And I didn't, and I thought that I was slacking because I waited until last night to do this.
No, I pretty much sat down about an hour ago when the house cleared out, and I had a few minutes to myself before we went live this afternoon, and was like, oh, okay, let me actually make my list now. I had been thinking about it. I had like 3 or 4 in my head, but then I started glancing at my books. My bookshelves are right next to my desk here. And I was like, who else is up there that I can think about? So that was kind of my process. So who wants to start us off today? How about Isabella? She hasn't said much.
Okay.
I am just looking over Dante's giant list again.
It is impressive.
I think it's changed since I saw it earlier. So
Has it? I don't think so.
Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I think I got overwhelmed earlier, and I was like, "Ah, crap!" It was like 5 times.
I'm trying to remember what your exact words were, but something along the lines of, "Oh my goodness, I can't do that." Jeez, no way I can even come close to that amount.
Okay. Oh yeah, right. I think I did. Yeah, I did add one more person since you looked at it last, Isabella.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So it technically has changed.
Okay. I'm gonna throw in a super oddball and say Stu and Dee Dee Pickles from the Rugrats.
Oh my god, that's incredible!
All right, and your reasons?
They're super supportive, and they're like actually loving parents. Like they have a really good relationship with each other.
Yeah.
They're not like fighting all the time.
They quip lovingly back and forth.
Yeah, they just joke, and they're caring, and they're, I mean, I guess they're kind of oblivious because their kids get into all kinds of crazy stuff, but it's a cartoon, so what can you do?
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
And there has to be some level of that to a degree. Like, there wouldn't be a story if there wasn't something the parents weren't on the sideline if something happened, because it's, the parents usually are the secondary characters, or at least I think in most of the people who came up on my list, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's why this was super challenging.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, because we talk a lot about heroes and we've done villains and we've done a lot of character stuff in the past few months. But, it was one of those things that we don't often give time and energy to think about, like who are the representations that we're looking at in terms of parents. We could do a whole one on mentors too if we wanted to just focus on that. But I know we talked about throwing those in today, so we could definitely have, some more mentor roles too.
Okay.
So, yeah. All right.
I've got an entire category on mentors.
Yes, I know. I saw that. Well, why don't you segue into that? Who did you have for a mentor?
Oh goodness, I had so many mentors. One of my favorite ones, the one that I just came up with this morning, was Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I was kind of ashamed of myself that I didn't think about it more. But yeah, the entire premise of that entire show was like, we've all heard it, West Philadelphia born and raised, and then he gets shipped off to Bel Air for, just because he's misbehaving and he's getting into fights and things like that, and they send him to Uncle Phil, and I forget the aunt's name, and I'm a terrible person, but I mostly just think of Uncle Phil. And just how supportive he was, how he always managed to go ahead and talk through his differences with Will throughout the entire course of the show. And the scene that is really sticking in my mind of the solid personification of who he is was the episode where Will met his father, his birth father, and then he ended up walking out on him again. Mm-hmm. And then, Will goes into this tirade about how, he doesn't need his father, and, it doesn't matter that, he was the only kid without a dad on the baseball field, and he just goes and he breaks down and he starts crying, and then Uncle Phil just goes ahead and grabs him and hugs him, and the screen just fades to black. I'm like, that is who Uncle Phil is. He knows that he's not Will's father, and he tries very much to be this responsible mentor role. And he just, oh God, in just that moment, he breaks down, and you see quite possibly one of the first displays of real raw emotion from him, because it's just not who he is normally. And that's stuck with me ever since I saw that episode. It's, he's one of my favorite mentors in probably all of media at this point.
Well, and it's a true moment of him putting the child's needs above ego, and above, because he could come at it with, well, I told you so, or something like that, and be petty and short, sighted about it. So I love those moments where you can see the, let's move beyond what this could be. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to roll down the rest of my list kind of quickly, because I have a lot of them, but Sean McGuire from Good Will Hunting. He's Will Hunting's therapist. You're going to see a lot of Robin Williams characters in this, because Robin Williams is my favorite actor.
Yeah.
Sean McGuire, the entire movie is centered around his and Will's relationship, and how he serves as that father figure to Will, and eventually inspires him to go, not even to go to college or finish college or anything like that. He inspires him just to go ahead and chase the one thing that he knows that he wants, which is his female love interest, which is
right.
Absolutely. And I could go on and on, but Robin Williams won an Oscar for a reason for that role. We've got one of the most mentor of all mentor figures is Obi-Wan Kenobi. We all know who he is. I don't think he needs any introduction or real explanation as to why he's a fantastic mentor and father figure. My favorite TV show of all time, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We've got Rupert Giles. He struggles throughout the entire season to not act as a father figure, but remain as the detached watcher figure. And
he didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, he didn't stand a chance. And and you can see throughout the entire 6 seasons, and then up through the 7th, or up through the 6th rather, when he finally leaves. He leaves because he knows that he's getting too attached to Buffy. And he had been attached to Buffy from the minute that he saw her die and come back to life. He realized how much he really cared for her. The first time. That came back the first time. Spoiler alert, everybody who hasn't watched Buffy.
I'd say
it's a 20-year-old show.
That kind
I'd
of
say
show.
spoilers, yeah, but we don't. I don't know. I don't feel like we need to spoil things that are decades old.
But yeah, he's a wonderful mentor figure.
Yep.
He is not afraid to get into fights. He's among the first people that will pick up a cross and pick up a stake and go out and support his Slayer and support Buffy, the person who is, for all intents and purposes, the daughter that he never had because of his calling, and that's where they bonded, because they both had that calling that they were never they never really had a choice in inheriting. And that's how they ended up bonding and getting to this wonderful, beautiful place that they were. And all right, and then my last mentor is another kind of oddball one, but Master Splinter from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series. Seriously though, the entire theme of those comic books, and the cartoon and even those movies, is the idea that these turtles are family. Sure, it's kind of a ridiculous plot where, there's a rat and 4 turtles and they get dumped with this giant green magic ooze and they turn into giant anthropomorphic things. But you've got this, this sewer rat who is, who for all intents and purposes, their stereotypes are that they're selfish, they're greedy, they're going to go ahead and abandon ship at the first sign of trouble. And this rat flips that stereotype in literature that we've seen. He goes ahead and he is selfless. He cares about them. He feeds them. He teaches them all about restraint. He teaches them all about familial bonds. He teaches them how to defend themselves, how to love a world that thinks that they're freaks. He is very much a real father figure for them, but he's also one of the best mentors for just general life lessons. I've got a friend out there in Connecticut, Jeff. If he's watching here, he's probably having an aneurysm at how much that I'm leaving out or getting wrong. He's a Gargantuan Turtles fan. But yeah, he really sticks out to me as one of the best mentors and one of the most wonderful flip stereotypes of one of those iconic creatures and what they symbolize. That's why he made it to this list for me.
All right. Do Evan, do you have any mentors on your list? I have all parents. I didn't venture into the mentors, so. Oh, and Evan just.
Evan got really shy.
Yeah. I put him on the spot and he disappeared.
That's okay. So, yeah, why don't you go ahead and talk about parents? I haven't been shutting up for the last 5 minutes.
Well, I have. I'll start with my Buffy reference because I think actually, Dante, you shared this picture when I put the topic up of parents first. Mm-hmm. But I put for blind trust, I put Joyce Summers. Mm-hmm. Because she literally just steps up into it when she finds out what's going on and the truth of the situation with Buffy. And I always appreciated exactly how much she was willing to just go with it. Mm-hmm. In a way that not a lot of parents, I think, would have been able to. So I appreciated her character for that, and that Joss wrote her that way.
Absolutely.
And also that she had the tragic end that she did. That episode is so hard. It's so hard. I can't. I know. He had lost, I think, his mom during the filming of Buffy, and so I think that there was some sort of emotional work that he was doing there. But what was always so poignant about Joyce Summers dying in the Buffy series was that she didn't die by vampire and she didn't die by evil, spirits or anything. She literally just, her body gave out, and it was just so terribly awful and perfect in terms of the writing, because if it had been something that she could, and even then she still felt like she needed to have stopped it or done something for her.
Yeah,
So.
there are 2 episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer that I need to watch in complete silence. Hush is the first one, and The Body is the second. I need to be in a closed room, and there needs to be no talking, no anything, because that particular episode is just like, it is the closest thing that I could think of as like a holy moment.
Yeah,
it's just that show.
It's absolutely devastating. So yeah, well, I mean.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I really like that you brought up the whole blind trust. I just watched the School Hard episode, which is the episode where Spike is introduced, and it's during parent teacher conference night.
Yeah.
And just that scene that's popping in my head was where Buffy corrals them all into this classroom, and she's just like, you stay here, stay low, stay quiet. And Joyce is just like you can get hurt. She's like, I know. And she's like, I know. And then Joyce is just like, okay, I got it. I have to trust you. And like that is absolutely perfect that you nailed that.
Yeah, that's her defining characteristic, I think, was that she was just willing to trust and put her trust, especially once she actually figured out. Because even at that point, she didn't really know what any of it was.
Yeah, at that point, she just thought it was, gangs on PCP.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, Evan, I tried to put you on the spot before, but you despaired. So
I escaped.
Dodged.
It's okay. I have an example of father figure. I was thinking a specific one that's recent is Logan from X-Men, obviously, but also specifically Logan, because like in the comics and everything, X-23, aka Laura, is a clone of him, a female clone, which is confusing, but like he still takes on this kind of father aspect of it. And in the movie they just made with her, she's his literal daughter. She's like taken from like his genetic samples or something like that, and is like created in a lab. But he encounters her towards the end of his life, and he's like all the other X-Men are gone. Xavier is the only one who's still around, and he's become like elderly and infirm. And for much of the cinematic universe's relationship with the X-Men, he was like, Xavier was often a father figure to Logan, so it almost kind of shows an aspect of parenthood that you don't see in literature or film at all, where like a child taking care of an elderly parent. So that was a thing. But also specifically, like, he's kind of lost his will to live. He's lost most of his fight, and like at the end of his life he encounters this little girl who's just like him, who's been through as much bad stuff as he had at that point in his life, and he kind of takes her under his wing. And he doesn't like, he's reluctant at first because he doesn't have any idea how to be any kind of a parent. He doesn't have any kind of real like self-worth at that point. He doesn't feel himself qualified, and yet he still, over the story, kind of comes to find to her and like sort of set her on her own path, as it were.
Oh, yeah.
And that was something that also kind of existed in a parental figure aspect in the original X-Men movies with Rogue. Like, she was kind of a daughter figure / younger sibling figure to him.
She totally attached to him. I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, like it kind of gets overshadowed because everybody always remembers like the whole thing between him and Jean Grey, but his relationship with Rogue is very parental.
Oh yeah,
and mirrors it in a lot of the same ways.
Yeah, especially I just remember like the end of the movie where he goes ahead and he transfers his healing powers to her, like completely sacrifices himself so that she can live. That's a fantastic point. I didn't even think of that. See, there was one thing on my list that I didn't get.
I knew I'd find it.
So, but since we're on the topic of comic book movies, can we also talk about another recent one that just came out? Yandu Udanta?
Yeah.
Peter Quill?
That's a good one too.
We've all seen Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Father,
yes.
A real man to be a daddy.
Oh wait, I don't know.
Oh, the newest one? No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't. All right.
Really good example of a bad father figure too.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
so,
I don't care about spoilers, so just.
You don't care about spoilers?
No.
Okay, so yeah, it's like so we're just talking about all of these like reluctant father figures. I mean, you see Yondu and how he goes ahead and he basically abducts Peter for Kurt Russell Crowe. I don't remember which one it is. Sorry, I always get those two mixed up. But Kurt Russell Crowe, like I seriously cannot distinguish between these two people. I don't know why. But anyway, Ego, the planet, played by whichever one of those was in that movie.
Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'm really bad with actors. So,
there's only like 25 years difference in age between them, so I'm like,
whatever.
okay.
They both have Russell in their name, so it's just a thing. Anyway, like so you see like Yondu, he goes ahead and he abducts young Star-Lord for Ego, but he can't actually go through with it, and he takes him in his own, and he's got this really weird way of raising it, where he always just like jokes around that he's going to eat them, except Peter never thought it was a joke. It was really fun,
Right?
I think the tragic thing about it was that Yondu, obviously he'd been a captain of a pirate mercenary group for most of his adult life. He'd never really had a kid. He just figured that he would bring this guy up to also be a mercenary pirate person, and it's really sad and tragic that it's only at the end of his life where he looks back on like, oh, like I taught him how to fly a ship, I taught him how to shoot a gun, I taught him how to raid. And it all's culminated in that final moment where he's zooming Peter out to space, sacrificing himself so that Peter can live. And that part that just made it. I didn't cry. I totally didn't cry during that movie.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. Where he just looks Peter in the eye and says, Ego may have been your father, but he weren't your daddy.
Yeah.
And I was just like,
I cried during that whole segment. I cried. I'm like,
song playing over the entire thing.
This is like, it's Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was crying, and I'm like, okay, guys.
Mm-hmm. Like the emotional ringer going through there.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it really was. It was, and that's what I loved about it. Go ahead.
That's a good example of a father figure who's like not a good father figure until he has to be, and then he rises to the occasion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like up until that point, he was not an ideal father figure at all. Right. Like it wasn't an ideal relationship in any way. Mm-hmm. But when it absolutely mattered the most, he came through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. He like I said with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air example, and Uncle Phil, like him, like he's stepping up and saying, the sacrifice is not the same kind of sacrifice because of course Yondu dies, but. Sorry, Miss Bella.
Spoiler alert! Everybody
come right out with it. Jeez.
Hasn't seen Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, we already did a whole podcast episode on it, so okay. Spoiled by now to our listeners. Then, sorry again.
It's all right. So
one's been out at least a month now. I don't feel too bad about it. But yeah. So, all right. What about you, Isabella? Do you have another example for us?
I'm on the wrong list.
Don't look at Dante's list.
I was like, no. So one of mine, why I asked if we could open it up to parental figures instead of just actual biological parents, is Uncle Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Who's quite possibly the best parental figure ever.
He's like the best.
Yeah.
I don't know how him and Prince Zuko is a prince who was banished by his father. And he's sent off with his uncle to hunt down the Avatar. And I don't know. I even know how to put it into words. Uncle Iroh is like he lost his son when he was younger, and so he was actually in line to be Fire Lord. To be Fire Lord. I was going to say king, but that's not right. To be Fire Lord, but he kind of gave it all up when he lost his son and had this entire crisis of
conscience and
conscience and everything. And he's the one that ultimately, and spoiler, not spoiler, kind of brings Zuko over to, the good guy's side, pretty much. But he's just one of the most caring figures because he takes Zuko at kind of his worst because he's a bratty teenager who has the weight of, his father pretty much mutilating him because he burns his face before he banishes him. And it takes him at his brattiest and then, ultimately helps shape him into becoming the person who he is at the end of the series, which is just like amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you hit it right on the nose there. Zuko had one of the best character arcs for that entire series, and and Iroh is absolutely the person who is to blame for that. I think it really. I forget which episode it was, but it was somewhere in the third season where Zuko had joined forces with Azula briefly, and then he eventually goes back to Iroh and like busts him out of prison, and he tries and he barely gets out the sentence "Uncle, I'm sorry" before Iroh just goes ahead and holds him and starts crying into Zuko's shoulder. And I'm just like, and that just illustrates.
It always makes me cry.
The depth. I'm trying not to cry on camera right now. Right?
I might have to subtitle this Hangout, the one where we all almost cried.
Yeah. It is the perfect moment of just who Iroh is. It is exactly what you said. He takes Zuko at his absolute worst, and he never gives up on him. Not for this entire year quest that they have. No matter what Zuko does, what Zuko says, nothing. Iroh is always ready to just be there to forgive him and to give him the support that he wants to give, and because he knows that Zuko can make the right decisions when he stops getting in his own way. And it was just an absolute gift of a character to see played out on screen.
Right. And he doesn't get in Zuko's way. Well, he lets Zuko make his own mistakes, but he's always there for him to come back to when he, figures stuff out.
Yeah,
and he's just a surprisingly good mentor figure for like everyone else in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. Aang gets mentored by him at least once that I recall.
Yeah, and Toph has her little moment when she doesn't even know who he is, and he just, I can't remember if Iroh knows who she is, but
he probably does. Let's be honest.
Yeah, because he knows everything. But yeah, I mean, if there's one character who can make me cry in that series, it's probably Iroh.
Yeah, and never once with any of Zuko's failings did Iroh ever give one "I told you so." Like it was it was always just like, it's okay. We all make mistakes. What did we learn from this? Let's move on.
Yeah, with an underlying like, at least you're not your father, and at least you're not Azula.
Exactly.
I feel like there's a little bit of that in there. At least you're not a psychopath like the rest of your family.
Yeah, pretty much.
Thanks for being moderately sane. All right. Well, I want to move on to one of Dante's categories that he pulled up that I added at least one character to. So the first one on Dante's list was "My mom could beat up your mom."
Oh yeah, that was my most fun category.
Yeah, Evan, do you have any that you think would fall into that category?
I have the ones that I stole from Dante.
Well, steal them away.
Okay, I have to give him credit because he came up with it first, but I love it too much to not co-opt it. It's the Carpenters, Michael and Charity from the Dresden Files, which are one of the awesomest power couples in all of fiction as a whole.
Literally and figuratively a power couple.
Yes, literally. And it's amazing because like the Dresden Files book series is something like, is it 15 now? 15 books?
Something in that range.
14 or 15 books now, something. It's been around for ages. It spans like more than a decade of time in universe and out of universe. So it's like, it's this long running series. And like Michael specifically is introduced pretty early on in the first, I think it's like the third, fourth book.
Yeah, it's somewhere around there. Yeah,
it's up there, and he is from the very beginning portrayed as being this just epic fighter. Like he's a force of good. He wields a holy sword that is like forged from one of the actual nails of the cross, and he like slays for God, and he fights the forces of evil, like with vampires and like evil sorcerers and demons and everything like that, and he kicks all kinds of butt. And he's vigilant. He's always true to himself and true to what he believes in, and he's always there for Harry when he needs him. He's always a source of advice. So in a way, he's almost a father figure to Harry, because Harry has, without spoiling too much, he's got a super not ideal situation with his parentage. Like he lost his father at a young age, never really knew his mother. His original father figure turned out to be evil.
And, tried to kill him a little bit.
Forced his complicated adopted sister figure to kind of have to fight him too. It was a whole messy thing. But so like he never really had the ideal father figure in his life, and so Michael kind of fills that role, even though they're pretty close to the same age. Like Michael's so much more mature and so much more grounded, and like kind of benefits from that relationship. But also Michael is a family man. He's got tons of kids, just tons and tons and tons of kids.
They're like the Duggars of the Dresden universe.
Yes,
great.
It's nuts. But like he's always portrayed as putting his family first. Like he dearly loves his wife, even though his wife hates his best friend. Like they're so connected as a family. There's numerous times where some of the kids will come in danger, and I definitely don't want to spoil a lot of that because it's relevant, and half of our current members on this stream haven't read the books yet. Shame.
Yeah.
But
we might be changing that very soon.
Yeah.
But it only gets stronger as the story goes on. Their relationship develops. The kids they grow up. We see them grow up into adulthood, some of them over the course of the story, and their relationship, the Carpenter's relationship with the kids, never wavers at all. Like even when some of the kids do things that the parents don't necessarily directly approve of, they still love their kids, and they still support them, and they're still there for them, and they'd still die for them in a heartbeat.
Yep, and they literally and figuratively fight for their kids on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insane. They're quite possibly some of the best parents that I've ever seen. And I cannot add anything to what you just said. You just covered it all.
So good.
All right, so I want to go next, just with my favorite, like the ultimate quintessential, like my mom could beat up your mom, Sarah Connor from the Terminator series.
Right, no doubt.
Let's be real here. I mean, was she the best parent in the world? I mean, probably not.
She was in kind of a rough position, though.
She was in kind of a rough position. She watched the killer robots, go ahead and kill the father of her baby, right in front of her, and then got painted as this crazy psychotic person. But it takes a lot of skill and heart and determination to break out of a mental hospital pretty much on your own. Like, she made it pretty much all the way out before Arnold did his whole come with me if you want to live bit. But everything that she does in those movies is for her son. Even if you go into the television series with Lena Headey as Sarah Connor, everything that she does is to prepare her son to fulfill his destiny, prepare her son to be the hero that he needs to be, so that he can save humankind. And especially in Terminator 2, her kid's kind of a jerk. He's bratty, he's smart mouthed, he doesn't really take his destiny seriously until he is confronted with it, and it comes to meet him. And and even though the relationship between the two is very strained, she is the first person who comes to his side. She is always going to be there for him, and if Arnold Schwarzenegger were not programmed to be at John Connor's side, she would be there with a shotgun in one hand and a pistol in the other, just beating back the forces of hell to make sure that he lives. I do not want to tussle with that woman. And I'm really glad that we're starting to talk about women a little bit more now, because I feel like a lot of our parental figures have been very male focused.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess so.
It's that old Disney phenomenon. For some reason, when we have to kill one parent, it's always the mom.
It's always the
It
mom.
really is.
Well, and that's not just Disney. I mean, that was the fairy tales in general.
Yeah.
It was usually the moms that were gone and stepmothers, blah blah blah. So evil stepmother, another trope. But yeah, I had I wanted to add on to that list. Well, I wanted to add two. One that I just thought of. Although she's not. I don't know if she was truly a mom, but she definitely was a mom figure. Ripley from Alien.
She was a mom.
Wasn't she? I can't remember. Like in the third one, is it the third one that she actually has a baby, or somewhere in there? It's been so long since I watched
She's had a baby
them.
the entire time, if I recall correctly, and it was just like she left her daughter at home or something. I think it's the video game Alien Isolation, I believe, focuses on her daughter as the central character.
Okay, I couldn't remember if it was canon that she actually had a mom or that she had a child or not. But I wanted to think about her in terms of my mom can beat up your mom because, well, yeah. And the other one
became a father or mother figure. She became a mother figure to Newt.
Yes, she did.
In Aliens.
That's what I was thinking of more of her as a mother figure more than as a mother, because that's the impression I had more of her as a character, was that she was sort of the mom to everybody, but not necessarily a mom, which is, definitely, a distinction I guess we can kind of make here. But that's what I was thinking of. That's what came to mind when you were talking about Sarah Connor. She popped into my head. As another character that had that kind of give it your all mom fighting instinct. And the other one that I wanted to add is from Harry Potter, and she was the mom to pretty much everybody.
Oh yeah,
I know who you're talking about already.
I specifically left her off my list.
What?
I specifically left her off my list because I figured somebody would have her. Somebody has to go ahead and mention her.
Well, when I was thinking about it, she was one of the first ones that came to mind.
Oh yeah.
Because Harry Potter, just period. But Molly Weasley, was just, she was everybody's mom. She was always there. She did a lot of the sort of background to make the Order of the Phoenix work, and did a lot of, sort of crazy things. And then, of course, her epic moment at the very end of the last book where...
Of course.
She takes out Bellatrix Lestrange, and that's just like the most beautiful thing ever. I love that.
It really is. It
really was one of my favorite. Like the most, you take the toxic femininity, obsessive, crazy Bellatrix, and you have her undone by Molly Weasley,
who's quite possibly her opposite in literally every way.
Every way. It is just the perfect, battle of, good versus evil and crazy versus, sane and wonderful or whatever. And I won't say she wasn't smothering and she wasn't a little, overbearing, because she certainly was.
Yeah.
But that's definitely part of what her charm was.
I entirely agree.
Yes. So she had to be in there.
So Isabella, do you have anything for My Mom Could Beat Up Your Mom?
I have my adoptive parents could beat up your adoptive parents.
That's fine.
All right.
Kanan and Hera from Star Wars Rebels are
Okay.
kind of... I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Star Wars.
I am not familiar with Star Wars Rebels at all.
Okay.
I know that it is.
So they're...
Continue.
So they're basically they kind of pick up this orphan kid Jedi in training called Ezra, and they're an ex-Jedi and a pilot. Hera's the pilot. Kanan is the Jedi, and they're together, but not in a really overt way. It's always really in the background. You only get little moments with them, but they're just like you do not want to cross Kanan or Hera, and if they're together, like shit will go down. They will infiltrate the Empire's army to get you back, like they do multiple times when Ezra gets himself into some deep, deep trouble, usually on purpose because he's an orphan street kid who just does not know any better and likes making trouble. So
okay,
that's one of mine.
all right.
And
so
since I have to bring balance to the Force, I have another one.
Oh, no.
I do.
Okay. I hope that this is who I'm thinking of because
it could easily be. There's many examples, but from the proper Star Wars expanded universe, there's Mara Jade and Luke Skywalker are a hardcore power couple. Like, she was originally an assassin for Emperor Palpatine, and she tried to kill him. And over the course of the years, like, they grew closer together, and kind of she turned to the light side, and he learned from her, and they both kind of got together and became like more focused on rebuilding the Jedi Order. And they had a son named Ben, and they raised him, and he became a Jedi too, and like they were both kind of responsible for the entire rebirth of the Jedi Order between the two of them. And like she kicked all kinds of butt. Like when Han and Leia's eldest son turned to the dark side, she was the one who went to fight him, and she
was he
died in the
Kylo
process.
Ren in the expanded novels too?
No, he wasn't. He was Jason Solo.
We might get in a little heated
Darth
territory
Plagueis.
here. We wandered into Star Wars territory, and so
They ripped him off hardcore with Kylo Ren, but he was done so much better originally, and it made so much more sense. So, but she fought him to her death, and like she was willing to give her life to kind of save a member of her extended family and or stop him like at all costs. So like they were like a really solid couple.
Nice. So since we're still in the Star Wars universe, I want to go ahead and possibly stoke the flames here.
Almost definitely.
Yeah, we're probably going to stoke the flames. Star Wars: The Clone Wars cartoon. What are our thoughts then about the relationship between Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano?
They're not quite. They're
It's
more
more of
like
a
mentor
sibling
mentee. Yeah,
Like
barely.
he's the mentor to her, but he's also just barely out of being mentored, being meant on.
Being with Mentos the Fresh Maker?
Yeah, he's just become a Jedi Knight, so he's not ready for having an apprentice of his own, and she's only a few years younger than him anyway, and like they're not. It didn't make a lot of sense from a narrative standpoint for that to exist. It was pretty much only something they did so they could market to a younger crowd by having a teenage character in the show. But it did ultimately kind of fit that kind of. I feel like it's more of a sibling kind of relationship, which is important too, but not quite what I would consider to be a parental sort of thing.
Okay. I just wanted to go ahead and throw that in there. I haven't actually finished the series, but I really liked her.
Shame, Dante.
Yeah, I know. Shame.
I need to have a bell for these hangouts because we always like start saying shame, 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 and I don't have a bell to ring like Game of Thrones oriented. Oh wow,
Yeah.
I didn't put any Game of Thrones parents on my list because they're all terrible.
I wonder why.
Or they're dead.
With the exception of Ned Stark. Ned
That's
Stark
true.
is an amazing parent.
That's true.
He died for his kids.
And Caitlin Stark, I don't know. She was. I have a category I made called "It's Complicated," and I might put her under "It's Complicated."
I mean, like, are we going to put Cersei Lannister under the "It's Complicated" category too? Because she loves her children.
Yeah, she thinks she's
an awful
acting.
human.
Yeah, she thinks she's acting in their best interest. And it clearly doesn't work out that way for her. But she's also so power hungry that affects all the decisions she makes. So I don't know, like, she really loves her kids, but she's certainly misguided in the way that she guides them.
Okay.
Well, she's power hungry, in denial about it. Like she genuinely, I think, believes everything she does is for her kids, but she's wrong. She just doesn't realize it.
Mm-hmm. She's so self-centered that she doesn't understand what's going on, how her actions affect the greater world. Like, this is me just talking from seeing a whopping season and a half of Game of Thrones.
Well, I am trying to put that in context to like the most. It's pretty clear her drive for power is pretty clear in the most recent season.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty obvious that she's making her decisions based on wanting her kids to be in power, which ends up being the ultimate in backfiring. Like it backfires as epically as it possibly could. Am I the only person who's up to date on Game of Thrones?
Yep.
I am.
I'm like a season behind.
Okay, yeah, because that season, well, let's just say, I won't spoil it for you. She tries to manipulate everybody, and it just doesn't go right.
I think part of her motivation, though, is kind of self-preservation.
Yes.
Almost.
Well, she wants to
because
stay.
She was born into that situation, unfortunately.
No, and she wants to stay where she's at, and she, in the position that she is. And when
if she falls, she'll probably end up dead, or
she'd have to be. Like there's, she was the one who said in the first season in the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. And she knows that her life is on the line for this too. And, she was taken prisoner and, held hostage and tortured and,
Yeah. It's complicated.
It's complicated. I'm telling you, like, cool. She really does have this like inner, righteousness that she thinks she's behaving in the best interest for her kids. She doesn't, because she's so misguided by her desire for power, regardless of whether or not she recognizes that is what it is. She puts over everything else.
Awesome. So can we continue on this topic of It's complicated?
Yes,
because I've got two figures that I originally wrote down that are very complicated parents.
Yeah, I have others. I have other It's complicated too.
So my kind of like out of left field one is Mayor Wilkins from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because he originally doesn't start as a father figure
at all.
Not as a father figure at all, and then he eventually takes in faith with the express purpose of going ahead and turning her against the Slayer.
Right.
But as the series goes on, they do develop this sort of familial bond where one of them gets very sad when the other is hurt, and when the other's not around, and it culminates in that in the rooftop fight scene where Buffy knocks Faith off of a building and she lands in a garbage dumpster, and she's put into a coma for about 8 months, and the mayor goes to visit her at the hospital, and he is clearly distressed, not just because his ultimate chess piece has just gone to waste, but because he's seeing a person that he very deeply cares about in the hospital with tubes stuck up her nose, and the doctors are saying, like, we don't know when she's going to wake up, if she ever wakes up, and what the extent of the brain damage is going to be.
Right.
And the amount of just seething anger and loathing and despair that he is feeling all at the same time. I mean, like, I give it to Harry Groener. This guy is absolutely incredible at conveying all of these things, but Mayor Wilkins is so incredibly complex. His relationship to Faith, and I know there's at least one other person who's watched Buffy on this hangout.
I have, but only once, and you've apparently watched it a lot more than I have.
Oh yeah. Well, I've been through the whole series at least 3 times entirely, maybe 4. But what's great about the mayor is exactly how important he is to Faith, because Faith has had no one, both in the life she had before she became a Slayer and in the life after. The first Watcher that comes through that's supposed to be there for her was a fake. sent to destroy her. I mean, every like mentor person she's had has betrayed her in one way or the other. And as terrible and as awful as he is for Faith, he's the one person who never turned his back on her. So he really was good for her. And, you know, whatever sort of development Faith is another, it's complicated character just in general because because Faith. You know, it's those complicated characters that aren't, you know, Molly Weasley and Bellatrix. They're not good and bad. The complicated characters are the ones that have that mix of the good and bad in them. And I think that that makes them more fun to talk about to a degree. I remember, you know, in my time when I was acting back in my earlier life, I always wanted to play the supporting characters. I never wanted the lead roles because those characters were always so much more interesting to play.
I can take on that, yeah.
Than the leads who are either heroic or bad or anything like, you know, like that. The ones who are kind of in between and kind of walk those gray areas, I always thought were so much more interesting. And I think that that falls with this too. You know, I think Faith is a more interesting character than Buffy is in a lot of ways.
There are a lot of more characters on that show that are more interesting than Buffy is.
But she's definitely the catalyst for the, you know, the show in general. So the parents that I had under It's Complicated are from Once Upon a Time, and I put both Emma and Regina as favorites of mine. I haven't finished the series. I stopped watching it when it went Frozen. Had they gone Hans Christian Andersen, I would have stuck with them, but they went Frozen, and I was like, nope.
Yeah,
to be fair, they went Frozen, then Hans Christian Andersen. So
yeah, I know you keep trying to like convince me of that, but I still have that.
That's okay. Image. I failed out of it. Of it.
You finally gave up on it too. I really wanted. I mean, I loved it. So I've only watched. I don't know what was that. 4 seasons, 3 or 4 seasons.
I think it was like 3 or 4 seasons, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when the Frozen came out, but of course it was right after the movie came out. But yeah, so I thought because both Emma and Regina act as a mother figure to the boy whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. Henry. And they both are great moms in different ways. Regina maybe aligning a little bit with Cersei in terms of acting out of a misguided protective stance. And Emma not really knowing or understanding being a mom, having, you know, given him up. So yeah,
it's very complicated.
Complicated. Her storyline as a parent gets a little bit more interesting when she, you know, flip-flops back to being good. And you know,
Regina,
what's frustrating about her storyline is that she
consistently waffles between being good and bad.
Yeah,
just for plotty reasons.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of the catches for me that turned me off from the series was, you know, they could flip on her you know, just to make the story work, to make the plot work, and that always kind of drove me crazy. So
at least with Spike, you know, like Spike, they went ahead and they like, you know, bad, now he's good. They're like, he's still an anti-hero, but at least he's
still an ass, but you know,
he's still a jerk.
Exactly. So I've got one last It's Complicated parent, and this is a very complicated parent, Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Oh God.
Yeah. He's an extremely complicated character. I mean,
a complete sociopath.
A complete sociopath, a cold-blooded murderer, you know, a drug lord, / science teacher and car wash owner. You know, who would have guessed? Spoiler alert for anybody who has ever watched the series, or who's never watched the series, rather. So, I mean, I'll just go over it very briefly. You know, Walter White, he gets diagnosed with cancer in the first episode, like a day after his 50th birthday, and he doesn't have the funds to get cancer treatments, so he turns to making meth. And it's originally like it's very much like a gambler's fallacy, where they're only in until they have enough money to get what they
whatever
need.
Their end goal is. I just need to get to this place, and I'll be good.
And then they get out, and then 5 seasons in real time, 2 years later in actual story time, like he has an entire drug empire, and the entire thing that he consistently tells himself, deludes himself into throughout the entire family, is that this is for his family, is because who's going to pay Walter Jr.'s medical bills because his son is he's got cerebral palsy. Who's going to pay his son's medical bills? Who's going to pay for my chemo because he's suffering his entire time.
Well, and his wife's pregnant.
His wife was pregnant.
Yeah.
His wife was pregnant. It didn't work. It didn't work until about halfway through the series, and it's just it is fascinating to see him so dedicated to making this family work to the point where he could not see the forest for the trees. He could not see how destructive he was being. He couldn't see how destructive he was being to his own family. Like he turned into the bowling ball instead of being the protective figure. He put his family in so much danger just for financial stability, and there's always been just a fascinating trope for me to explore as I was marathoning the series when I was unemployed, and I'm sure for everybody else who watched it unfold over the course of 5 or 6 years that it was on. Because at what point do you draw the line? Like, when is too far for him to go ahead and protect his family?
Yeah. Well, and the thing for me with Walter too. Oh, go ahead, Isabella, because mine's going to go
the problem I have with Walter is in the end he admits.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go.
He could have gone. He had other options.
Yeah,
he didn't have to become a drug lord. He was doing it for the rush.
Yeah,
and
that
he had enough money long ago.
And that was
and he could have gotten a loan from his rich friend or whatever. Like he could have made it work. Like he admits that.
Yeah, he admits that he had this other failed business venture. Or the business venture that he was like forcibly bought out of or whatever, and then he admitted that this meth business was his way of going ahead and making it up to himself for getting forced out of that other one. Yes, absolutely. I mean, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, like his redemption for me came and I wrote a whole article on the site about this if anybody's interested in looking, because I watched Breaking Bad long after, I think I watched after you did, Dante. I watched the whole thing in a matter of months and was messaging Isabella as I was watching.
Yeah, and I was like, wait, it gets so much worse. You don't even know.
Like, I don't know if I can handle this.
I know, yeah, there's this entire part where he throws a pizza on the roof. Like, that's just the worst. Why would you throw a pizza on the roof?
Did it have pineapple?
No, she thought the worst part is like when they handle their first dead body or something.
When the body breaks
I'm like, it gets so much worse.
Oh god, yeah, just the season 4 finale is just like
Is that the one where they blow off that guy's face and he walks out of the hospital room and you think he's okay, and then they turn and like his face is missing? Exactly. Just his tie.
There's no way that you survived this, and then he falls over.
And we were screaming at the screen.
It's like the most brutal thing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's one of the most brutal things I've ever seen on TV.
Yeah, it was amazing, and it was great. And I'll stand by it as a show that I think is kind of a good standard for like excellent arcing of storytelling. Yep. Like they really paced it right. They got the characters right. They got the timing right. I mean, everybody in it's fleshed out. And it's terrible. The things that happen to them are terrible, especially poor Jesse. Like my heart still bleeds for Jesse because he just gets absolutely ramrodded by Walter. But the thing for me that redeemed Walter White was that moment at the end where he finally says to his wife, "I liked it."
Oh,
which is what Cersei needs to do. She needs to say, "I like the power," right? And that's how if she's going to redeem herself, which I don't necessarily think that she will, nor should she. But it's that same thing, that need to accept that I liked this, and that was the thing. He's like, "I liked it," and had he not had that moment, I would have been like fighting you about him being on this list.
Yeah,
it was not about his family, and it was not about having money. It was not about protecting everybody. It was about his need to be successful. Which makes him a great character because, you have one motivation you say, in one way, and then the true motivation is another thing altogether. So
yeah, he's at least intelligent enough and self-aware enough that he finally got there.
Well, he finally got to the point where he had nothing to lose to actually admit it, which is the reason why he came forward, because he knew he was dying and he was going in to sacrifice himself to save Jesse. So to hopefully save Jesse. Who knew if that was really going to work? Anyway. Yeah. Highly recommend if you can stomach the tension and the stress of watching Breaking Bad.
It's really good.
Certainly worth it.
Yeah. It's basically a PSA in don't do drugs.
Yeah.
and
don't make drugs.
It's a very special episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can I also just one minor side about Breaking Bad? Like this is a show that is all about meth addicts, and it shows no shortage of people who have been hooked on meth for literal years. Every last one of them has perfect teeth.
Yeah.
Why do they have perfect teeth? Like, meth mouth is a thing. Every single dentist who I've talked to about Breaking Bad, they're annoyed about the exact same thing, and
I think
listen, AMC, you're on notice.
There was one episode where they find this guy who was really, really strung out, and he's got sores all over his body, and his hair is falling out. I think he might have been like that, but he's the only one.
The one token person.
But even the hooker that Jesse kind of knows, and that Walter goes to a couple of times, and that
I know who you're talking about, but I don't know her name.
I don't remember her name. She was blonde, and she lived in the motel or whatever.
Yeah.
Even her teeth were okay, and it was no. I mean, they were kind of yellow. That's the worst that they did, was kind of yellow. I'm they would be missing. Be there with a kind of anyway. Yeah. So I had thought about that too. Anyway, total
Yeah, that's my one criticism about Breaking Bad. The entire show.
All right, Isabella, do you have another example on your list?
Okay, I'm gonna throw us completely off track and go in a totally different direction.
Okay, but because talking about meth teeth didn't do that.
Sophia from Golden Girls.
Oh,
is one of my favorites.
I have not watched a single episode of Golden Girls.
Oh my God! How dare you! Shame forever.
I'm
Clearly,
sorry.
you have never been without cable for a long periods of time, because I watched
that is
probably a couple times over.
Wow.
Anyway, Sophia is the mother of one of the 4 women on the show.
Right? Some Blanche's
No. Dorothy's.
Dorothy, yeah. Sorry.
So she lives with all 4 of wait, no. There's 3 of them.
There's 3 of them and her. Yeah, she's the 4th.
Yes. She's the 4th. So she kind of acts as a surrogate mother to the other 2 women, and all their crazy antics. And it's just a nice image. They will have a scene almost every episode where they'll just go to sit around the kitchen table and have discussions and eat cheesecake, because that's what they do.
Very sweet. It really is.
It's the sweetest.
Yeah.
She's my favorite, and she can kick someone's ass if she had to. She's tough.
Doesn't she talk about being Sicilian? Isn't that the thing for her?
Yeah. She's a Sicilian grandmother.
Yeah.
She can.
I know a couple of those. They can be pretty tough. Well, in crazy, I had a topic for crazy fun, just fun parent. And I thought of Rick Castle from Castle.
I completely forgot about him, but yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, he was just crazy fun dad.
Yeah, he's a fun dad, but he's.
Oh yeah, because he's basically just an overgrown child in a man's body.
Yeah,
exactly.
Who understands that he pay bills every now and then. Yeah,
he's the archetypal puer, the young boy who never grows up, the Peter Pan character,
right.
And so he just made for a really fun dad.
Oh, yeah.
Who ends up with a really, really smart, self-sufficient daughter who takes care of him instead of him taking care of her.
Right. Which is the established at the very beginning. She's like that at the beginning of the show, even though she's 14 or 15 at the start of the show, and but just continues to grow and sort of outpace him maturity-wise.
Yeah, she kind of does.
She really does.
Oh my God, one of my favorite moments from that show, I think, was their first Halloween episode where he came dressed up as
dressed
Mal.
as Mal. Oh,
he dressed
yeah.
up as Mal, and she's like, "What are you supposed to be? I'm a space cowboy.
cowboy.
There's no cows in space, Dad." This is so good.
But there were cows in space. There was actually an episode where they're herding cows on a spaceship. Yeah. Okay.
It was wonderful. But
Yes.
yeah, I want to add one to the crazy fun parents is Daniel Hillard is another Robin Williams character, better known as Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes.
Oh my god.
It is like, who's the
father and a father figure?
Yeah, father and a father figure. Exactly. And a mother figure.
Oh, that's funny.
I mean, but I loved, because you see at the beginning of the movie where he goes ahead and he throws a ridiculously over the top birthday party for his children, completely against his wife's wishes, trashes the house and everything like that. But every time his children go to see it, like, he's always trying to do all these wacky zany things, and like he is just that fun parent, but he also crosses over into the category of like your archetypal parents, the ones that do what they do out of a pure love motivation. Like, he loves his children so much that he goes to his friends and he tells us, like, I want to be the most convincing elderly mother figure that I could possibly be, just so I can spend time with my kids. Because spending time with my kids as someone else is better than not spending time with them at all. Like, and that to me is like one of the most powerful and one of the most selfless acts that I can think of as far as parents in fiction are concerned. Like, he is completely willing to go ahead and give up who he is just so he can spend a couple of hours a day with his kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's positively wonderful.
And it's funny, and it's crazy, and it's Robin Williams, so it has all of that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's Robin Williams.
Yeah.
I think everybody secretly wishes their dad was Robin Williams.
Pretty much.
Or their mom.
Yeah, pretty much.
I entirely agree. So,
yeah.
And so that's my last one for, like, the fun parent.
Oh, really? So I saw one on your list that I also had on my list, which are the parents from The Incredibles.
Oh, God,
Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl.
I love them so much.
Yeah.
They're basically like family unit goals right there.
Right.
Like, they go ahead, they talk it out, and even though he spends half the movie lying to his wife, he eventually comes clean, and he eventually, he gives a heartfelt apology. He understands the ramifications of his actions and how he's stupidly brought his family into this much danger.
Yeah.
It's positively wonderful. Like, this is going to be another moment where I almost cried during a movie. Was the end after the highway scene where he says, "Okay, you all stay in the car. I'm going to go ahead and fight him." And she's like, "No, I'm going to come." It's like we didn't come all this way to let you do this by yourself. And he breaks down. And he's like, I can't do this. And he eventually, I can't lose you again. And I was bawling.
I'm not strong enough.
Bawling. And I'm not strong enough, and I can't lose you again.
Right. Yeah.
And all she does is she just hugs and kisses him, and his kids are just like, "Oh, that's so cute." That's what a supportive parent is supposed to do.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned. And yeah, I mean, just can we also talk about just loving supportive parents with like marriage goals? Gomez and Morticia Adams.
Oh my God.
They're
so sweet.
Yeah, Gomez and Morticia Adams are absolutely incredible. Just like the fact that they look like they've never stopped dating. Like, they've been married for God knows how long, but they look like they just met each other last week. It is positively incredible. I would wish that one day I could have a relationship like that, where I'm 50 years old and I'm still just like, hey, this is awesome. We're still dating and everything. And not to mention, they're so supportive parents. Like, Pugsley and Wednesday have everything that they could possibly want. Their parents are always around. They're always supportive. They attend all their school events. They they coach, they mentor, they play with them. They let them do what they want within reason. And there's even that part when they're at the parent teacher conferences in the first movie, where the teacher's trying to bring concern that Wednesday wants to be like Great Aunt Calpurnia Adams, who danced naked in the square with like doused in pig's blood or whatever. And Morticia has this wonderful line. She's like, "Don't worry, we've told her college first, and then she can dance naked in the streets." She's like, "This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. I wish that I could be that cool of a parent when I grow up."
All right, Evan, what do you have? Do you have any more? I only have one left on my list.
Happy parents or just parents in general?
Just anybody. Doesn't have to be in this crazy category or happy category. Or I think Dante had that down as pure love. Those goes under your love category.
I have another dad.
Okay.
Cool.
Mine is from a video game. It's actually a video game that I've been playing recently. Is Mass Effect Andromeda.
Okay.
That one has the player character is one of two twins. Like there's a male and female twin, and you choose which one you play as, and the other one still exists in the story. And your father is Alec Ryder, who's this like legendary figure. Like he was like part of the first Contact team. Like he fought in the first Contact war with the aliens, and like he's been like a figure of like he's just a really publicly well-known figure, and he's a very kind of military dad kind of a thing. He's very stern, he doesn't show his emotions. You kind of gather over the course of the story that he was always really distant with his kids, and they never really had much of a relationship with him. Mm-hmm. But then like as the game goes on and you kind of unlock more aspects of the story, like you literally you have an AI in your head that used to be in his head, and it over the story you gather memories that are his that you can replay, and you learn over time that he did almost everything he did for his kids. Like the entire premise of the game is you're on this ship that's traveled for 600 years to get from the Milky Way galaxy to the Andromeda galaxy while everybody was in stasis the whole time, and they just left the entire galaxy behind. He took his kids with him, and you find out that one of the main reasons why he chose to do that was because he caught on to the events of Mass Effect 3, where the Reapers are invading the galaxy to wipe out all sentient life. He did that partly specifically to leave the galaxy before they would get there so he could save his family from that fate, along with everybody else on the ship. And also you find out that the AI he designed that's in his head, that's in the player character's head, he specifically designed to try and help his wife, who was dying of a terminal disease. Like it would help kind of control her nervous system and stuff like that. So he essentially designed it specifically to keep her from dying. So like it's an example of a character who's really on the surface very reserved. He doesn't speak his feelings. He doesn't show his love, but it drives everything he does kind of behind the scenes. So even his own kids didn't really realize the extent to which their father loved him, because he just did not do a good job of showing it, but also it did motivate every choice he made.
That's really awesome. I've not played one Mass Effect game, but
You've
maybe
not lived.
You've
not lived.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I am terrible at video games.
Doesn't matter.
Like positively terrible at them. So
look up a Let's Play or something. It's important.
Okay, that is what a lot of people keep telling me, is that Mass Effect is important and everyone should play it. I'm like, but I'm bad at video games. Okay,
doesn't matter.
Whatever. It's gonna take me like.
I'm really bad at them too, Dante. That's why I mostly play like narrative style games where you don't have to like
adventure games where you don't actually have
be
to
good
like,
at like shooting things
aim
or
and shoot at things.
Because I will die.
I was thinking about a dad, but it wasn't a good dad from a video game. I was thinking of Diamond Jack from Borderlands 2.
Oh my god, how did you know?
How did you know?
How we know Borderlands?
I love Borderlands 2. It's so much fun. But he was terrible. But he was like the bad guy. But like at the end, he comes back and he's like trying to avenge his daughter, who you actually, well, she sacrifices herself essentially. But he turned her into a computer, and then she sacrifices herself so that you can continue on your mission. And then he's mad about that.
Oh, well, that's
He's not mad about the fact that he turned her into a computer. He's
Mhm.
mad about the fact that you killed her, so you could like undo all the bad things he's doing. So he's really bad. But I was trying to think of video game dads, and that was the only one that came to mind.
I can't think of one. This is
a lot of good ones.
Video games that I've played.
I'm sure I could like dig into the lore of World of Warcraft and pull out a few, but there were none that like stood out to me as like, oh, this is a friend.
Oh, I got another good one from another video game, Red Dead Redemption, which is a phenomenal game. Your main character in that game, he's like a former outlaw. It's set in the Old West, and he's like, everything he's doing is because these corrupt government agents have captured his wife and son, and they're kind of holding them hostage and forcing him to hunt down like the old gang he used to run with. So everything he does in the entire story is kind of like he'd retired from this life of violence and everything like that, but he's going back into it in order to like save his family. And in the end, like the government still betrays him, and he ends up getting killed. But
well, that's unfortunate.
But he was a good video game dad.
Yeah, well, at least there's a couple. All right, everybody can pick one more.
Okay. Choose me
Okay.
last.
Choose you last. Okay. Isabella, what do you have?
Keith Mars from Veronica Mars.
Oh, that's a good one.
I like that one.
Just because, again, apparently supportive parent seems to be in my wheelhouse because,
Yeah.
yeah, he deals with his daughter's crazy antics and, getting herself into real trouble, and still finds a way to be supportive and help her out and not smother her or anything.
Right, and he lets her, she's got that same kind of castle dynamic where, single dad kind of a little bit of her taking care of him, emotionally
but
to a degree.
Theirs is a little bit more reciprocal, though.
Yeah, there's a little bit more balance between the two of them than there is between Castle and his craziness, but that's still very supportive and understands who she is. I think that was always the thing that I appreciated about him, was that he didn't try to make her into something that she wasn't, even when she would get herself in trouble. He just helped her out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Cool. All right, Evan, you got one more?
I just came up with 2 examples, so I got to think.
Okay.
Oh, no. Flip a coin.
2 in a row.
All right, well, I'll do my last one. The parents that actually inspired me to this topic might surprise you or might not, depending on if you've listened to the show enough. You probably know that this is one of my all-time favorite sitcoms, and it's Kitty and Red Foreman.
Oh, they're so good.
That 70s show. And I think their goals, both as parents and as a couple, because I love that they're still handsy with each other. It's kind of like the Addams Family dynamic, where the love and the appreciation and the physical affection continue between them through the entire run of the show, which spanned I think 4 or 5 years, something in there. But what I really love about both of them is that they're kind of, especially Red. I mean, Red is very much quintessential sort of stereotypical working class dad, not really good on the communicating of the feelings, but always there. And always kind of understood the kids in a way that I think not a lot of parents did. Like, one of my favorite scenes was, they give Eric the Vista Cruiser, right, the old station wagon, and the first thing he says is, "Okay, don't take it out of town." And so the kids leave, and Kitty walks out, and she's like, "Well, where are the kids going?" And he said, "Out of town." Because that's
really funny, actually.
Yeah, like that insight, like he always knew exactly what was going to go on. And got really crazy when he found out the kids were smoking pot, and he was putting the Christmas bells on the doors and locking it down so that nobody could get out of the house so they could go do their crazy antics and smoke pot. But he was doing that out of a misguided and slightly humorous love. So yeah, I just always thought he was really good at kind of being that understanding dad, but still tough on the outside. So he always held them to a high standard, but he did it out of, sort of that supportive compassion as well, even if you wouldn't necessarily read Red Form in that way. That's still who he ended up being.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Kitty's just adorable. So
Kitty's just, she's wonderful. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful.
She's absolutely crazy. She would go into the kind of the crazy parent too, but fun, and also they were good at kind of letting the kids be who they were too. So, yeah. All right. You guys have to battle it out because you guys had to think about it.
All right, listen, I already called dibs on last.
Okay.
I got it. For some reason, it keeps coming back to me. The Jungle Book, you've got Baloo and Bagheera are kind of both.
That's really good.
For Mowgli, like they're both very different kind of father figures. Like Bagheera is very kind of a disciplinarian. He's like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. He's very concerned about his well-being. He kind of sees him as like his charge, but he also obviously cares a lot for him. Whereas you've got like Baloo is more kind of the fun dad. Like he's like, hang out with me, let's chill, let's do all the fun stuff. And you kind of, over the course of the story, you realize that you've got to have kind of both those influences in your life. Like it can't all be about
just one
following the rules. Don't do this, don't do that. But it also can't be all about just the bare necessities. Like you've got to be filling that balance. And also, I guess the wolf pack, kind of, you don't see as much of their parental influence over him, but they also obviously care. Yeah, and that's kind of like a communal parentage.
Yeah. Yeah, that one wouldn't have come to my mind, even that we were just talking about it on Friday night, oddly enough. But yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one.
It's a good one.
Oh man, now it's me. I actually make a decision now. I still seriously have like 10 or 12 still on the list that I haven't talked about.
Yeah, it's a pretty long list.
But I'm gonna have to go with another one who has a very complicated relationship with their child, and that is Dr. Henry Jones Sr., played by the immortal Sean Connery.
Yes.
Because they clearly show from the beginning of that movie that the relationship between the two of them is very distant and usually very disciplined. Like he's running into the house and he's like, Dad, you have to listen to me. They're like, nope, I need you to go ahead and count for me 1 to 10 in Latin backwards, or whatever he ends up doing, and the tension between those two is readily apparent throughout the entire movie. That Indy only wanted a father who showed appreciation, who showed love, who showed compassion, and he's got that really painful line. He's like, you showed me that you cared more about these people that have been dead for 1,000 years rather than you cared about your own son who's in front of you right now. And Henry Sr. is just retorting with like, but this is important. Like this is gonna alter the course of history, and he doesn't see how damaging he is to the son. He thinks that he's preparing his son for the greatest discovery of all time, but all of that is really just like washed away. Like and their relationship is really tested in the Grail Chamber. When Henry Jones Sr. gets shot in the stomach, and it's up to Indy to go ahead and save him, and it's at that point like how strong is your relationship with your father? Like do you love him enough to go ahead and possibly get your head chopped off and possibly drink out of this cup that's going to turn you into the Crypt Keeper, so that you can go ahead and have a shot at saving your dad? And it shows that, like, despite all the frustration and the fighting and the distance and the separation, that he still really does admire and he loves his father, and it ultimately gets reciprocated at the end of the movie when Henry tries to go ahead and reach down into the abyss to save Indy, and he's just like, I can almost get it, like the Grail's like 2 inches from his fingers, and they just have this wonderful little father-son moment where it's just like, just Indy, let it go. It's like, we found it. We can say that. We can say that forever. And I think that was probably the first time in Indy's life where his father ever showed him compassion, that his father ever showed that he acknowledged that his son has done something great. And I thought it was a fantastic father-son moment. I love the interplay between the two of them.
Cool. Yeah, that's a pretty pivotal story and interaction in that story. It really does sum them up. I'm sorry, I was slightly distracted because I was really excited because we had somebody join in the chat and then they ended up being a troll. So
lame.
Of course.
Seriously lame. Although Andrew just shared the older sister in Lilo and Stitch.
She was on my list.
That's a really good one.
It would be like Lilo and Stitch, but it's one of my favorite movies.
No, that's a really good one.
That is a great suggestion. Thank you, Andrew.
I wouldn't even thought of that.
It's nice. Thank you for not being a troll. And sorry for the other person who I blocked out of our chat.
Nice.
After he was a jerk.
I dig it. All right.
Oh, yeah. So Lilo and Stitch, that's a great one. Sisters, so we didn't really think too much about that, like older siblings as parents.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, Buffy has to go through that. I know we're talking about Buffy for like the 17th time this episode. But Buffy has to go through that with, the worst character ever written. Because, Dawn is pretty terrible.
Yeah, she's got some atrocious moments, that's for sure.
But yeah, I mean, for 3 seasons, it's a wonderful little interplay where you see that the 3 main Scoobies really have to go ahead and grow up, especially in the absence of Joyce, where they have to grow up and they have to be the parental figures for this, all intents and purposes, 1 or 2-year-old person who's masquerading as a 15-year-old.
Right.
And they all parent her in very different ways. Willow's kind of the mentor figure, where Xander's the fun dad, and Buffy's the disciplinarian and the whole responsibility one, because her life for the last 6 years has been all about immortal responsibility.
Yep, keeping everybody there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. This is a fun topic.
Oh, this is good. I enjoyed it.
When I get challenging ideas, I guess we come with good suggestions.
Dig it, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for hanging out today. Thanks to our listeners. Thanks for those who are watching. We had 3 or 4 people watching on and off throughout the show, so thank you guys for watching.
3 or 4.
Share this video, give us comments and feedback both on our YouTube channel, or go check out the website, thegeekembassy.com. We love to hear from you guys, and we'd love to hear, who do we miss? Who should we absolutely have had in this discussion and that we didn't make on one of our lists? So let us know. And until next time, get your geek on. Bye.
Bye. Bye.